Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Parker Gray, and I'm the Adult Services Librarian at the Fredericksburg Branch Library. And today we have Catherine Flores from Rappahannock United Way, and she will be sharing a presentation on good versus bad credit.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Welcome everyone to this presentation. As Sarah mentioned, we will be talking about good versus bad credit. I feel that sometimes with credit, there can be negative connotations. Throughout my experience coaching and doing some mentoring, one of the big things that I hear all of the time is people come in and they say, I never got a credit card because I was told that credit cards are bad and you should never have one. Or people have this idea that any credit that you get is just negative. And that's not always the case. Credit can be used for good purposes if you are able to use it responsibly. And so today we're going to go through and look at, what that looks like. The first thing that we will do is understand bad versus good credit. So we will be looking at each of them and defining what that is and what it looks like. And then once we have defined each one separately, we will then be looking at how to make smart financial decisions regarding good and bad credit to make sure that we are using credit appropriately and responsibly. Looking at good credit first, when I looked into what is good credit, according to Equifax, it stated that debt that you are able to repay responsibly based on the loan agreement can be considered good debt. So anything that you're able to pay back, something that is responsible for you to take credit for. The reason for this is that a favorable payment history is reflected positively in your credit score. It shows that you are responsible and are able to pay back debts on time. And if any of you guys participated in the last workshop I did with the library that was based on credit, one of the things that we looked at is that payment history makes up a very large percentage of your credit score. It affects 35% of it. And so having that favorable payment history is incredibly important. It is how you show your credit worthiness, that you are responsible in paying back loans. If you've never taken out a loan and you don't have that credit score to show that, it can seem a little more risky to some loan companies that you haven't had that history build up yet. Another form of good debt can be things that you borrow money for that will increase in value over time, things that will offer you a good return on your investment. Something that maybe you have to borrow in order to get now, but eventually it will give you back more than what you borrowed. And so one of the most common examples of this are homes. We purchase a home and typically they do go up in value over time. And as we pay off that debt, when we sell our homes, a lot of times we can get money back for it. And so think of any other option where you are able to get a loan on something that will offer you a good return for your investment. Some of those could be, like we stated, your home, which accrues in value typically over time, and therefore it gives you a good return on the investment, the credit that you had to take out for it. Another might be a business. Maybe you're starting a new business and you're having to get a loan in order to get started. If that business is successful, you would get that return on that investment, and therefore it would be good debt because it allowed you to receive a higher income. Another example can be student loans. Student loans is one of those things that can be a good or bad debt. Truly, all of these can be good or bad debt. It just depends on whether you receive that return on your investment. So with student loans, if the student loans allowed you to get a higher paying job to the point that it was worth it, then that would be a good debt. Vehicles. Especially living in this area, we really need vehicles to get around. Fredericksburg doesn't have much in public transportation, and so having a good vehicle is incredibly important. If that vehicle is what allows you to get to a better paying job, then that vehicle can be an example of a good debt. Of course, when we invest properly and we purchase a vehicle that is well within our means. But if that vehicle gets us to and from work to the point where we're making a good income, if we did not have that vehicle, we wouldn't make that, then that vehicle is a good debt. So all of these can be examples of good debt. I'm sure you guys can think of even more examples of things that can be considered good debt. So good debt are things that we receive a good return on investment, or things that we can responsibly pay back, things that will help with our payment history, which will increase our credit score. Another thing that increases credit scores or helps with credit scores is a credit mix. So companies typically want to know that you have shown that you are responsible in paying things back in a variety of different ways. So they want to know if you have credit cards, that you are responsible in paying those back, but that you also had a car loan and you were responsible with paying that back, and that you had a mortgage. And so having these different forms of credit can help with your credit score. So anything that is beneficial and that is worth the investment can be considered good debt. But if that is good debt, then bad debt is going to be the opposite. Bad debt is simply debt that you are unable to repay. This is debt that does not provide any return on investment. This is debt that negatively impacts your credit score. Last class, when we looked at credit, we learned that one of the biggest impact areas, like I said, is payment history. And when we're unable to pay back the money that we have borrowed, it has a huge impact on our score. It can impact it negatively in a significant way. Having delinquent accounts does stay on your record for 7 years, and so it can affect your credit score for that long. It does affect your credit score a little bit less each year, so the effect that it has does diminish over time. But initially, having that debt that we did not pay back can be significant. Any debt that does not provide a return on investment that we're not able to pay back is considered bad debt. Debt that negatively impacts our credit score. So let's say we take out a credit card and we put too much on it. That can be bad debt. It is recommended that you do not charge your card more than 30% of whatever your limit is. And so staying under that 30% is really important. When you go over 30% of your maximum allowable, it can be considered bad debt. And the danger with credit that I'm sure many of you have heard so many times is that it's such a slippery slope. And when you do not manage credit responsibly, or with the thought in mind that you are using it specifically to help credit, you can easily get into debt. And a lot of times it happens slowly and over time in a way that you don't even realize it. Before you know it, you have debt that you are unable to pay back. It's overwhelming, or it's hard to keep track of. And so this is what is considered bad debt. Some examples of bad debt can be having credit cards with that we can't afford to pay back. Maybe we put too much on a credit card. We used a credit card because we had an emergency, but then something else came out. So we had to use another credit card for that. And now we're unable to pay those back. So we're using a credit card for daily expenses. That is an example of bad debt. Another example can be a vehicle. I know that we talked about this with good debt, but if you purchase a vehicle that is not giving you a good return, whether it was simply more than what you were able to pay back, maybe you were persuaded and you found a car that was your dream car that you wanted to buy and you purchased it, but now the monthly payments are just too high that you're unable to keep up with it, that would be considered a bad credit. Or maybe you purchased a vehicle that was within your means, but maybe it was not in the best shape, and now the cost to keep it repaired and keep it running has become astronomical. That can be considered a bad debt. If we do invest in our business, let's say we get that business loan and the business fails, that can be considered bad debt. It didn't give us a return that we were expecting. Having too many credit cards can impact our credit score negatively. One of the things that creditors look at is how many accounts we have. And when we have a lot of new credit, that can impact our score negatively. So all of these things are things that can impact us. Maybe we have a credit card and we're just using more than 30% of our credit limit. Maybe we have a credit card, but it has really high interest, or we took out a loan with really high interest. Those can be considered bad credit. So as we go through life and we get a better understanding of good credit versus bad credit, and really thinking about those things before we get lines of credit, these are some questions that are important to ask yourselves. Is this debt beneficial? So before opening any kind of line of credit, before getting a credit card, when you're at the store and they ask you, do you want to get a credit card? It'll save you 20% off. Take a moment to really evaluate and think. One of the biggest things I can say is just take a moment to pause. A lot of times we can make quick, rash decisions in the moment that is based on emotion. And if we were to just take that moment to pause and think, it would be the difference between us making that financial decision that we regret later versus choosing not to do that. So take a moment before you open any kind of line of credit, whether it is a credit card, whether it is getting a vehicle loan, whether it is purchasing a house, whatever it may be. Take a moment to sit down, look at your finances, and evaluate. Is this debt going to be beneficial to me financially? Will I get a return on this debt? Is this something that will bring me money later on? Is this something that will allow me to get a higher income? Or is this something that will increase with value over time? What is the purpose of me opening this account? Am I opening this account because I want to purchase things that are wants and maybe not exactly something that we need, not something that will help us long term? Why are you looking to open this account? Are you opening it just to get that discount at the store that you're shopping at? Or do you have a specific purpose in mind for this account? Next, what are the benefits that are provided by this credit account? There are so many credit accounts, especially credit cards, that offer a lot of rewards and cash back. And sometimes those things may be useful. But I always tell people typically the interest rate on those accounts are much higher than the rewards you get back. So if you do put money on that credit card for the rewards and you do not pay it off within that month, you're charged interest. And at that point, you're losing out on your rewards because the interest is higher than the rewards that you get back for these credit accounts. Is this something I can afford? If you look at those monthly payments and the overall cost of this product, is this something that you can afford? Is this something that you're willing to spend? How will this help my credit? So maybe initially the hard pull on your credit might make it go down initially, but will it help your credit overall? Is this going to be something that's beneficial to your credit score? Will this be beneficial long term, or is it something that will only satisfy an immediate need? A lot of times we have things that we desire in the moment, and there are so many options that we can take to satisfy those desires, but we need to be thinking long term as well to know if this is something that long term will work out for us. So this is a great example for when you're purchasing a vehicle or a house, or these commitments that are just long term, and knowing that if I purchase this, I'm stuck with this item for the next however many years. I won't be able to sell this and get a return on my investment for so many years. Is this something that I'm willing to commit to for that long? Lastly, it is so important to have an emergency fund. Having money saved and put aside is helpful when unforeseen costs come our way. Because the fact of the matter is, unforeseen events always happen. Unforeseen costs always happen. It's just something that happens in life. And so having an emergency fund is so incredibly important because it will prevent you from having to use credit in order to cover unforeseen emergencies. So starting an emergency fund and figuring out how much do I need to put aside, how much do I need to save. A lot of people recommend that you have 3 months of income saved in your emergency fund. I would say to start small. Sometimes having those bigger goals can seem unachievable at the moment, but breaking it down into small, manageable chunks is easier to handle, easier to plan for. So if you do not currently have an emergency fund, start your emergency fund today. Start putting some money aside. Look at your budget and decide how much can I put into savings. Is it going to be $100 a paycheck? Is it going to be $50 a paycheck? Maybe I can only put $10 aside. $10 is all I have, and that's what I'll put into my savings. However much you're able to put it aside in your emergency savings, it is much better to have something than to have nothing. And so when we're looking at making these purchases, if you are looking at going to school and getting student loans for that, um, are those student loans going to help you get a higher paying job? Is it going to be beneficial over time? And then think about your loans. Is that something that you can pay back? What's the monthly payment going to be? What is the interest going to look like? Doing this kind of research can be a lot of work initially. It's a lot of front end work to have to do a lot of research and to find the answers to many of these questions. But you will see the benefit of it in the long term. As time goes on, having a plan set in place will be extremely helpful. So that is a difference between good debt and bad debt, and understanding the difference and being able to make those decisions. I know it's not always cut and dry, and there are so many gray areas in life, but trying to stick to this as much as possible is incredibly important. Credit is truly a tool that is meant to be used to help build your credit. Um, a lot of people use it for other purposes or may use it to pay for things that they may not be able to afford in the moment. But if we're able to use it with that in mind, that this can be a tool that can help increase your credit score, uh, then we can make better financial decisions. Does anyone have any questions on anything that we went over?
All right. Catherine, thank you so much for presenting today on good versus bad credit. We appreciate you being here. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sarah.